On this episode of the Good Enough Mompreneur podcast, I'm going to recap 2022 and some exciting announcements for 2023 and what are my goals and what am I working on for the year ahead. Hey there, Mompreneurs. Thank you for joining me. Welcome or welcome back to the Good Enough Mompreneur podcast. I'm your host, Angela Michuli. I am so glad you are here. Welcome to episode 1 of season 2. What? It's so crazy to think about season 2. I mean, this time last year, I didn't even have a podcast. So in this episode, I want to look back on everything accomplished and, give myself a little pat on the back. Holy cow. I mean, I don't know. We'll talk about it ahead. But in this episode, I'm going to do a little recap. I am going to tell you my top 5 episodes. I'm going to talk about lessons learned. I'm going to talk about my word of 2023. And then we're going to talk about some things that I am personally working on and looking forward to in the year ahead. Oh my goodness. So that is a tall order for this episode. But last year, in April, I started this podcast. I recorded 26 episodes and was heard in 11 countries. So everybody downloading this across the world outside of the US, thank you. That's just like crazy to think about. So I appreciate you. I appreciate you listening. I'm so glad you're here. So started out the year awesome. I was invited by Buzzsprout to attend the Podfest in Orlando coming up next week. So I am super excited to go, and holy cow. I don't know. I'm just really starting to see the fruits of a lot of labor that I just had to blindly keep going and didn't really know what would come of it. And I'm really starting to see that kind of come to fruition in many ways. So, wow. Mamas, keep going. It's really incredible. So I can't wait to attend Podfest next week. Thank you to Buzzsprout for inviting me to go and purchasing my ticket as a creator. That's a creator. What? I don't know. I'm sorry. It's just crazy. So I look forward to bringing you information about that. And I started off this year with some amazing women reaching out to me to collaborate, to be on the podcast. So I'm really looking forward to bringing you those conversations. And so let's talk about my top 5 episodes. And I'm going to link them in the show notes. So my number 1 episode, I'm not surprised. It was such an amazing conversation. Actually, the top 2, both conversations gave me the chills. They were just, something magical happened in those conversations. And one of the great parts about having a podcast is to be able to talk to people on the podcast who have influenced me and quietly were like the source of inspiration. So my top interview this year, or 2022, was with mobile dance studio owner Darryl Ross. And she is just such a bright light. and such a wonderful person. But, and I think that comes across in the interview. And I just really loved the opportunity to share with her what an inspiration she was to me and also my daughter, who was her dance student for several years. So I really loved that opportunity. And then, no surprise, her husband, Darryl Ross, is a speaker, author, and podcaster. And we had a conversation because one of the things that I learned this year, which I'll talk a little bit more of last year, is to just open up myself to listening to some of the advice and information and perspective of my husband throughout the year as I was developing this podcast and my businesses. So I love the opportunity to talk with Darryl about incorporating that conversation with your spouse or your partner through the development of your business as a mompreneur. I think it's something that, I talked with Jennifer and Darryl about incorporating your family in your business. And that is really a source of, really helps them understand what you go through as a business owner. And it makes your family feel a part of it. But I think we really have a tendency to maybe not listen to our spouses and partners who are not entrepreneurs, their perspective, although we should, because we all have blind spots. And, so yeah, that was a really great conversation. So number 3 interview for last year was my interview with social media marketer Talisa Pena of Socially Easy. She's so adorable and just so knowledgeable and a great person to interview and talk to. And she had some amazing takeaways on how to use social media to be social mama on social media, and balancing her business with her 2 young children, it's really an incredible feat. And so yeah, my number 4 interview was an interview with Jamie Reine on how to survive and thrive after corporate. And Jamie is such a spitfire. She's got so much energy and fire, and she's got this great perspective on how you can survive and thrive after a corporate job and go out on your own. So I love that interview with Jamie. I love talking to her, and she is going to have a new podcast out soon. Maybe I'll have an opportunity to talk to her again, because I know she's gone through some changes and things, so that would be awesome. And then my number 5 interview for 2022 was an interview with Dori Stewart, who is a franchise expert and who is a teacher turned entrepreneur and has a podcast of that name. And that she's so sweet and just really knowledgeable, and I just love her style. And she has some amazing interviews on her podcast. So I will link all of those episodes if you would like to listen to them in the show notes. So let's talk for a minute about the lessons I learned in 2022. And I think I'm living one of the lessons right now. I had to do a lot of things last year kind of in the dark. Like, I knew I had this inspiration to keep going, but I wasn't really seeing a lot of fruits of that work. And sometimes as an entrepreneur, you just have to keep going. One of the YouTubers that I watch, Clark Kigley, he had a really great analogy for like your first year of entrepreneurship. And this podcast has really spawned a new business for me in coaching. And it's kind of like you're going through a jungle with a machete. You're just like tearing it all down. You just have all this momentum and energy, and you're just like, getting through the jungle not really being as strategic as maybe you should be, but you're just doing what you're inspired to do. So that, I felt like a lot of that kind of emotion was behind what I was doing in 2022. I had this inspiration, this gut knowing that I needed to be doing this podcast. Wasn't really sure what it was going to add up to. But now I'm getting clarity, and I see all of the things kind of coming into perspective. It's kind of like when you go and get your eyes checked and the optometrist is changing the lenses and you're like, nope, not that one, not that one, not that one. Oh, okay. And then suddenly you have this new prescription and you can see. I'm definitely in that clearing right now and kind of going up on the mountain and seeing where I want to go ahead and thinking about it strategically. I really took some time at the beginning of the year to kind of be quiet and just kind of listen to my own intuition. And I think I'll continue to talk about this throughout the year, is there are a couple of issues as an entrepreneur right now. One of the really biggest issues is there are so many content creators. There's so many options. There's so much information that it really is like drinking from a fire hydrant. There is constant just consuming content. You're just consuming, learning. And you really have to kind of learn when to kind of break away from that and not only create your own content, which I think is very wise, and it's hard to get to that point, but you really should aim or endeavor to create more than you consume. So I took a few weeks to get really quiet and stop consuming so much and kind of process and let things marinate and really kind of listen to myself and my own intuition about where I was going to go and what I was going to do next. So that is really what I've been focusing on. And yeah, that's something you really have to be cautious about. And in that process, I guess this is just something that came to mind too. I'm going to give you a little piece of advice that no matter who you consume content from, who inspires you the most. I mean, it would be great if it was me, but I'm sure just like myself, I have many folks, men and women, who inspire me as entrepreneurs or thought leaders or whatever. Do not aim to be like them. Take what it is that you admire about them and make it your own. Make it fit into your own identity and who you are, and spin it from your unique gifts and personality. Do not aim to be just like anybody else, because the world needs you as you were created and in your unique gifts, not a duplicate of somebody else. So I will say that. I see that a lot. People, oh my gosh, they become followers of some folks and want to be just like them and, idolize them in a way. And that's great that somebody inspires you, but really do not forget yourself in that process. So that's just a little side note. I digress. But lessons learned from 2022 continued is, person after person on the podcast. Find a community. Find a group of people that you love, who you feel supported. Being an entrepreneur, being a mom, being a mompreneur, being an online business owner can feel very lonely. So finding that community and connecting with them and really helping them get through those tough times, which there are, where you're not sure what you're doing is right, and all of that negative self-talk that goes on can really help you through that. one of the really important lessons I learned in 22 was to manage my energy and not my time. So what do I mean by that? Tasks will take up the time that you allot to it. So if you give yourself 10 hours, you're going to take 10 hours most likely. So limit your time, but also understand when you are most productive and focus on doing the tasks that give you the most stress in your focus time. Just eat the frog. Just do it. Quit allowing yourself to continually stress out about things that are on your to-do list that you don't want to do. Stop putting it off. Just start. Just do it. And that was very much where this podcast was. Like, I had won a scholarship to a podcast course. I had gotten a new microphone and things for the holidays. And last January, I was so stressed about, like, now I put myself in this position where I had to start the podcast. So, and it was so stressful. The tech was frustrating at first. Getting intros, learning to listen to my voice and not cringe. Inviting people on the podcast and them saying yes. All of those things. I was convinced nobody would want to be on the podcast, and who would want to listen? All of those things, all of those terrible things that my mind told me, they all turned out to be false. Lies, fake news. So just start. And what's going to happen is you need to not think about that one thing that you're procrastinating starting about, and think about it as all adding up in like building blocks. So every episode I did led to another one and another one and another one. And I could stand back at the end of 22 and go, oh my gosh, I did 26 episodes. And I interviewed all these amazing people. And I got all of these things, off my chest, and created podcast episodes and was able to share that information with other people. And people have reached out like, wow, and it told me how much, certain episodes impacted them. And had I not just gotten out of that headspace, none of that would have happened. It was all on me, so just start, just do it. And then focus on the service, not the profit. The money will come. Learn to focus on how you are serving people with your unique abilities, your unique gifts. That is your priority. Don't focus on the profits and the followers. I know that your brain is just focused on those things at first when you're starting a business, but just resist it as much as you can. So another important lesson of 2022 was to get goals accomplished, you have to do actions. And we often just keep a list of those actions in our head and actually don't create an action plan. If you want to reach goals, you have to create an action plan to achieve them. So one of the things that sounds really intuitive, but man, I bet there are lots of listeners to this episode who just have like a random goal in their head. Well, if you really want to achieve it and you are really serious about doing it and invested in doing the work to achieve it, write it down and literally make a plan for each step that you need to complete for each part of the action plan to reach the goal. It's like I was listening to Jay Shetty's podcast, and he had a really great kind of analogy for reaching your goals. It's like when you buy a ladder, there isn't a bottom step and the very top step. How would you reach that? No, you've got all the ones in between. And you can think of, an action plan to reach a goal as all of those steps on a ladder. You can't just start at the bottom and reach the top. You really have to set yourself up for success. And one of those ways is to create a plan. So, yes, if you're not creating that plan and you're procrastinating on your goals and creating a plan, I'm 99.9% sure that what is holding you back is subconscious fears. And you have to be able to figure those out and address them so you can move forward. And sometimes one of the things that we can do to get rid of those subconscious fears is to not listen to them and create the action plan anyway. And then you start seeing some success and your brain learns, oh, okay, I can't tell that lie anymore, so I'm just not going to even try. So in order to create that action plan and accomplish the actions that are going to be in the plan to reach your goals, one of the fundamental things you have to learn how to do is create boundaries around everything that doesn't serve you or your family. So, holy cow, this was a really huge lesson for me in 2022. You cannot sit there and complain about your life and what is not happening and have no boundaries. You cannot say yes to everything, everyone, every project, every opportunity. You cannot do it and reach your individual goals that only you know that you have. You just can't do it. You cannot be there for everybody and yourself. Put yourself first and get that together. Then you can gradually start helping other people in limited ways. But I heard, who was it? Mel Robbins. She kind of describes it as, I don't know if she was directly talking about it in this way, but, kind of, you have to have a bouncer in your brain. Like, are you just going to let everybody in to your brain? Or are some people just going to have to wait? And they're going to have to earn the ability to be part of your world and use your time and be in that circle. And you need to be very selective about the people that you let into your life, your friends, your family, and even, your kids and your spouse and your husband. You have to set boundaries. And so you can accomplish, and I don't mean in a negative way, but learning to communicate, ask for what you need, and creating boundaries around that so you're not frustrated and full of resentment. So, okay, I am officially stepping off my soapbox. So, some people reached out to me and they were like, "What, girl? Your word of 2023 is good." What the heck is that about? And I'm like, yep, that's my word. And I posted a little reel, and I'll tell you this little story. I posted a reel that was my word of 2023, and I probably shouldn't have done it that day because I had found a kitten who had been hit by a car that day. And I was unable to save it. And when I initially saw it, I was driving home from dropping my daughter off at school, and I saw it was still it wasn't in bad shape, but it was, I thought I could still rescue it. So I came home, got my husband, and we got a carrier. But by that time, the poor little kitty was no longer with us. And I'm just glad that we were there to give it a safe and humane way of, being taken care of at that point. So my husband and I could not find the owner in our neighborhood, but we were able to take care of it. And so that was my little assignment that day. I'm a huge cat lover. I'm a huge animal lover. So that was a tough day. And in that reel, my eyes are so puffy. But, anyway, that's why if you looked at that and was like, one, your word of the year is good, and what, you look like heck. But anyway, yes, so for 2023, I am just doing all the things that feel good It has to feel authentic. It has to feel like something that serves me. It has to serve my family. It has to serve my goals. It has to feel authentic. And when we start to to feel our intuition about all the things that are good and serve us and we're supposed to be doing, we really create magic. And I started doing that about middle of 2022. And man, it's horrendous to hear the tough year that so many people had in 2022. But I had a great finish because I started doing that. So I encourage you to listen to yourself and let your intuition, because we talk all the time. We're trying to make a decision. We ask our friends, we ask our family, we ask all these people, blah, blah, blah. What do you think? When really, we know, what if your friend came to you with your question and asked you, what should I do? What would the answer be? And you know that answer. And it's really a practice of learning to train your brain and to trust that intuition. So that's what I am focusing on in 2023. So I definitely learned how to mompreneur in 2022, along with everybody else who listened to this podcast. So I am going to share this little list with you of the skills that are the things that got me 10 tips to be a successful mompreneur. And I will share this little insight with you too, in that there's discussion around a first life and a second life. And if you're in a position where you want to start a business because you are a subject expert on something, or you are very passionate about something, the skills that got you to that point are not the skills that are going to serve you, that are going to get you to the next level. You have to incorporate a chain of entirely different habits to take you to the next level, to where you want to be. I mean, I'm thinking you're not just going to start a business to stay stagnant, right? You want to continue to grow and improve and do bigger and better things. So here's my 10 tips to being a successful mompreneur. Number 1, you have to know your why. Why are you even doing this? Is it for family time? Is it for money? Is it for flexibility? Is it for freedom? What is your why? Because you're going to have moments where you're going to have to check back in on that to keep you moving and motivated to go forward. Number 2, you have to define what is your success. If you're doing a podcast, is it 10,000 episodes? Is it 5 clients a month? What is it? Is it, I know a coach who has the goal of helping 100 coaches earn 100K. So be really clear on what your definition of success is, not anybody else's. You create it. Then you have to create your goals to reach that definition of success. If you want to make 100,000 this year, how many clients are you going to have to get per week? How many phone calls? What's going to have to happen to get you there? So create those goals. Number 4, create a time budget and manage your energy within the time frame allotted. So this is really important because, in 2022, I definitely burned the candle at both ends. I've been doing it for a very long time. And I finally listened to my husband about creating my schedule for 2023. And he's like, I don't care what you do, but create that schedule around 8 hours of sleep. And, he's 1000% right. And I have been trying to burn the candle at both ends for a very long time. And once I started doing that, beginning in January, getting 8 hours of sleep, getting up early about the same time every day, and managing my energy in my time budget, man, I became way more efficient and productive. So that was really important. So, make sure in that time budget you include plenty of time for sleep. Look at the time that you are taking kids to school or managing naps or whatever, and work around that. But make sure you are including enough time for you to sleep. Definitely make that a priority. So once you create a time budget, you have to create a plan to achieve your goals within your time budget. So that is identifying all the tasks to reach your goal and then plugging it in your time budget schedule. So that's number 5. Number 6, set yourself up for success to achieve your goals. You have to surround yourself with people and things to support your goals. Like, if you're quitting smoking, you're not going to leave packs of cigarettes out. If you're on a diet, you're not going to leave a bunch of candy out. But for some reason, when we have a business, we don't think of saying yes to everything as not supporting our goals, or surrounding ourselves with people who are negative and don't support what we do, or limiting our time with them. So, or, set yourself up for success on social media when it comes to your business. If you are, I had an interview with somebody this year in 2022 who mentioned how when you have a certain type of business, the algorithm starts showing you people who are doing the same thing. Make sure you start unfollowing or not seeing those people and following things that fill your bucket, that give you a more positive perspective, so you're not constantly comparing yourself with other people who are just in a different place. They maybe have been doing what you want to do for years, or maybe they don't have little children or whatever. But make sure you set yourself up for success in all of those ways. So you can achieve your goals. If part of your goal is exercising, put your clothes out. Make sure that you don't have to spend time and energy on deciding on what you're going to wear. All of those things. Think ahead about what you can do to make it easier for yourself. So, number 7 on the list is create boundaries around achieving your goals. And I spoke about that a little bit earlier. If your goal is to lose weight, do not go out and have dinner with the person who doesn't care about what they eat, or wants to go tour a candy factory. Or if you're not drinking in January, don't go out to the bar with your friends. Do those things that create boundaries that help you achieve your goals. Number 8, protect your mental health. I did my last podcast episode of 2022 was on, how you can make mental health a priority in 2023. I'll link that episode in the show notes. And that includes getting enough sleep, exercising, meditating, finding what gives you equilibrium. And even if that includes seeing a therapist and finding a community. I mentioned that earlier too. Number 9, be kind to yourself. And I am going to link an episode to the Happiness Lab is another podcast that I listen to. And they had a really great episode on how to begin to train your mind to don't have such negative self-talk. It was really interesting. So in number 10, create more than you consume. You can't just constantly being on the intake. You have to cut that off at some point and go, okay, this is everything I've learned, and here's my version for the world of my gifts that I need to share. So what did we talk about? Did a little recap of 2022. I did a conversation about my top 5 episodes, my lessons learned, and then even, it's like a bonus, 10 tips for being a successful mompreneur. So thank you for spending this time with me. I have a huge favor to ask you. Can you please, if this podcast impacted you, resonated, helped you, please leave a review of the podcast. On Apple Podcasts, you can find the show, scroll to the bottom, and you can leave a star and or a written review. It means so much because I just create content and I never know what resonates or people like it or not. So that is so helpful to me. Then you can subscribe to the show so you don't miss an episode. I have some amazing episodes coming up and it's totally free. So you just go to the hamburger menu wherever you listen and go follow or subscribe. And yep, that's how you do it. Super simple. And then stay tuned for a new episode next week. Share the podcast with any like-minded friends and family. And thank you so much for your time. It's so busy. We all have so much going on. I don't know if you're like me, you're still recovering from the holidays. But I'm so glad you're here and I appreciate you and I appreciate your time. I look forward to all the conversations and everything that's going to come up in 2023. It's very exciting. Thank you so much. I'm full of gratitude. So I'm Angela, your host of the Good Enough Mompreneur podcast. I hope you have a great week and I look forward to talking to you again soon. Bye.